Very often people in our society feel I'm a victim, or circumstances prevent me from being happy, or I'm not healthy, so therefore how can I be happy? And the Rabbi says, no. You have a choice whether or not you want to be happy. You have a choice if you want to fulfill your purpose. And I think that message is very powerful. Every single soul has a specific reason. No two souls have the same purpose. And the fact that a soul comes into this world is like God saying, okay, you count. I mean, you're part of it. You got a piece of the puzzle there that is crucial to making this whole picture the way it's supposed to look.
Hi, so today I'm here with Rabbi Tuvia Teldon, who has served as the head Chabad rabbi of Long Island since 1977. He's the founder of Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island and the author of the 2025 book, Finding Your Unique Purpose. And Rabbi Teldon has dedicated nearly 5 decades to spreading Jewish life and learning in Long Island and helping people tap into their soul's mission. His book is a roadmap for spiritual seekers, Jewish and otherwise, drawn from personal experiences, Hasidic thought, and the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rabbi. Your Unique Purpose. You can get it where Jewish books are sold and online. So thank you, Rabbi Teldon, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Jacob.
Yeah, no problem. So I wanted, first of all, this book, it is beautifully designed. It sort of looks like a moleskin journal or a notebook or something. Was that the idea you had when you wrote this book, to make it into some kind of interactive workbook?
Good question. So the fact is that the core of the book is really the 36 statements directly from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Mm-hmm. And I just wrote notes on those statements mostly. I did an introduction to each of the 8 chapters. Mm-hmm. And then in writing those notes, I said, you know what? These are my notes, but other people could have notes also, because the Rebbe's words were so impactful and so full of life and multidimensional. So let's make a book in a way that other people can add their 2 cents as well. And in some cases, I hope that it'll become very personal, and a person will really keep the book as a personal guide on their own reaction and how they can see fulfilling their unique purpose better as a result of the Rebbe's teachings.
So how would you describe the book in 30 seconds or less if someone asked you for a summary of what the book is?
My elevator speech?
Yeah, your elevator pitch.
Okay. So I would say that each and every single individual is totally unique. Different eyes, different fingerprints, everything. And question is translating that into our purpose. Our purpose is totally unique as well. And there are many ways that we can explore what that means.
What are some examples of unique purposes that people have, either from feedback you've gotten about this book or that you've seen through your experience in life?
So let's start from scratch. Mm-hmm. You came from a particular sperm and egg from particular parents in a particular time and age in a particular country in a particular socioeconomic situation. Mm-hmm. That's all part of formulating the stage, so to say, of life that you're operating on, mm-hmm. that is going to give you the ability to live your life and to fulfill your purpose. So the circumstances of your life are really a very, very big determinant of how am I going to fulfill my purpose. We can't necessarily interpret every event that happens to us. Everything happens in the course of a day. But our circumstances are very unique. The fact that I live in America, the fact that I'm Jewish, the fact that I'm male, the fact that I have a healthy body. I mean, these are all factors that contribute to making me the unique human being that I am today. And then it's up to me, of course, to use those factors in order to be able to fulfill my unique purpose.
Right. Like, let's say somebody has an athletic personality and they have that kind of build. It's much more likely that perhaps somebody like that would become Michael Jordan or a professional basketball player than somebody who doesn't have those.
Right.
That build.
Exactly. Let's say somebody has musical talent. So let's say somebody is great in math, or let's say somebody, whatever it might be. And we can make a long list here. And each of them are providing really the means for that person to say, you know what, maybe there's a purpose why I have this gift or this quality, this talent, this particular aspect of my personality. On the other hand, it could be a person who's born with a lot of arrogance, or they grew up with a lot of anger, or they have a lot of depression, or they have a low self-esteem. That could be part of their purpose also. How do I overcome these obstacles in my life in order to be able to be a more fruitful, happy human being?
Yeah. Well, this book is centered around 36 teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Can you explain where you got these teachings from and why you chose these ones specifically?
Sure. So it's a common custom amongst many Chabad Hasidim, male and female, to read this particular book written by the Lubavitcher Rebbe every single day, because it's made up of small sayings covering 385 days of the Hebrew year, which is the most amount of days that the Hebrew year can have because of the leap month that we have in the Jewish calendar. And every one of them is really very interesting. Some of it's a commentary on customs. Some of it's about Jewish law. Some of it's about deep Kabbalistic concepts.
This is Hayom Yom, correct?
Right. The name of the book is called Hayom Yom, and it was written by the Rebbe in 1943. So you're talking about like over 80 years ago. And it survived through all types of circumstances, and it's still a very popular book to read. So I've been reading it for years, and I always felt that, wow, there are certain things there that are just really powerful statements that the Rebbe is making. But it wasn't until I decided to try to figure out if there's some consistent message that I made copies of all the different sayings that I wanted to highlight, and if a book would in fact be a possibility, put on my dining room table, started to reorganize them in chapters, and I did start to see that there's a pattern here, and there's a message here, and the Rebbe is building us up to something, and it was just like an open eye experience, like I was putting together pieces of a puzzle to a certain degree, because there are a lot of selections in Hayom Yom which are very consistent about driving in the idea that we all need to connect to our purpose, and that our purpose is unique.
Yeah. So in Hayom Yom, they have all these different sayings. And so you went through all 385 of them to pull out 36 that you felt could help people connect to their purpose or achieve their purpose.
Right.
And you put them in this book.
Correct.
And so what do you think is the main theme or an overarching connecting principle between these? Or are they all different?
So there's really two aspects. The Rebbe says clearly in one of the selections that every single soul that comes into this world has a general purpose and a specific purpose. So I would say our general purpose as human beings is to be good people, is to be moral, ethical. As far as Judaism is concerned and the Torah is concerned, as Jews, we fulfill Torah, we fulfill mitzvahs, and we want to contribute our role, our piece to be able to make this world the type of world that God wants it to be. But then you get into the second dimension, which is a specific purpose. And for that, the Rebbe really highlights to a great degree the whole idea of divine providence, how every single soul has a specific reason. No two souls have the same purpose. Every soul is unique. And the fact that a soul comes into this world is like God saying, okay, you count. I mean, you're part of it. You got a piece of the puzzle there that is crucial to making this whole picture look the way it's supposed to look. And so the divine providence, I say, is really a kind of an overriding theme that we see from the Rebbe.
Yeah, so for people who don't know what divine providence means, I grew up and I heard the term hashgacha pratis all the time. So for people who don't know what that means, how would you describe it in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, whoa, okay, let's see. So divine providence, I would say, is the belief that God is intimately involved in the world and in our lives, and things don't happen just by chance or coincidence, but that the circumstances of our life and the events of our life do have a purpose. We're not always privy to understanding what the purpose is, but they do have a purpose, and there are ways that we can connect to that purpose and kind of peel away the cover, so to say, to try to connect to it.
Yeah, so somebody who's looking for their purpose. I mean, you've written 2 books about purpose, and you've done a Chabad.org course about purpose. So in your quest, what spurred this quest to share your insights or to learn more about finding your purpose? Was there something in your life or anything? Did one day you just wake up and say, I want to write these books? What motivated you?
Okay, now you're getting personal. And for good reason, because it is very personal. And we were married in January 1977. Our first child was born in April 1978. And he was born with cystic fibrosis. It's a very serious pulmonary disease, which at the time we were told that he might last for 5-7 years or whatever. When we went through a very, very traumatic experience. I mean, it was like getting a punch in the stomach here. We just arrived in Long Island, ready to bring Yiddishkeit to the hundreds of thousands of Jews there, and all of a sudden, this happened to us. So he went through a lung transplant, the first pediatric double lung transplant in America, in St. Louis, and we were really on a roller coaster. Our life was very much it revolved around this experience to a great degree. We had 5 more healthy children during that time also, thank God. But he passed away in July of 94.
So did that incidents spur this quest to discover?
Right. So at that time, I mean, even from the very beginning, I was like, what purpose could this possibly have? And I had been to yeshiva and I learned Chassidus and I had my smicha, but I realized, this is not academic study. This is like real life education here. And so it really kind of always came back to what purpose could there possibly be for this happening. So I wrote my first book, which is 8 Paths to Purpose. That's right here. And that was published by Outskirt Press. And I wanted very much that it should be a secular kind of approach, because I wanted to speak to people who didn't necessarily believe in God the way we do, right, but could nevertheless relate to the idea of purpose on a very personal level. So that was published in 2020, in fact, March of 2020, simultaneous with COVID's coming, so it had a tough time competing with COVID as far as getting attention. But it was a book that I put a lot of years into writing. I always wanted, though, to write something much more spiritual. Mm-hmm. I wanted to write something much more about God, about purpose from a whole different perspective than the secular perspective. And as I was reading Hayom Yom year in and year out, I said, the material is right here. I mean, this is really everything that could be said about purpose, mm-hmm, from a more spiritual Hasidic perspective. And that's how the book came into being.
Is there something that the Rebbe said about purpose that was different than anything other Jewish or non-Jewish figures have said about purpose?
I'm not sure I can compare it to all the other scholars and great rabbis around.
Just
but
from your experience.
I can say that I think that the Rebbe's message was very, very personal and very detailed, in the sense that purpose is something that doesn't have to be like you're creating an app or you're climbing a mountain or you're the CEO of a company. Purpose is in the small little things of life. Every single part of life that you experience during the course of a day, potentially you can infuse purpose into that experience. Mm-hmm. You meet somebody who's down and out, and you can turn it around and help them get a little bit happier. You're fulfilling a purpose, and that situation could be for 5 seconds, could be for 5 minutes, could be for 5 hours. But we always have the potential, the Rebbe taught, to be able to transform darkness into light and sadness into joy, and it's a fact of choice. Mm-hmm. And very often people in our society feel that, well, I'm a victim, or circumstances prevent me from being happy, or I'm not healthy, so therefore how could I be happy, or I just experienced this, so how could I be happy? And the Rebbe says, no, you have a choice whether or not you want to be happy. You have a choice if you want to fulfill your purpose. And I think that message is very powerful.
So do you think when people are fulfilling their purpose and living their purpose that will bring them a sense of happiness or well-being?
I would say that it definitely brings an inner sense of happiness. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily an external happiness, but I think the human being, Jew and non-Jew alike, are wired in a way that when we feel we're fulfilling a purpose, mm-hmm, there's a certain feeling that goes on inside that, wow, this really is where it's at. This is why I'm here. I mean, why do billionaires give away 90% of their money? Why do people almost sacrifice their life to go for a cause, whether it be the army or whether it be something else? Why do people, go out of their way at great risk sometimes to be able to help a person? The most evolved ape doesn't care about its environment or about making anything better for its children. The most intelligent porpoise just lives in its environment, doesn't change anything. Human beings, by definition, want to fulfill some purpose. They want to do something better than themselves. They want to make the world better. And this is really the Rebbe's message about utilizing that inner desire, utilizing that inner DNA, that wiring that we all have. And the Rebbe takes it to the max. The Rebbe takes it and says, okay, go all the way. Because that's really going to connect you. And that will really make you say, I would say the word would be fulfilled instead of necessarily happy. Happiness, I think, will come, but I think fulfilled is definitely a result of fulfilling that purpose.
And what would you say is one of the techniques or tactics that is in the book that could help people get closer to their purpose or find out what that is?
So there's a beautiful story from the Rebbe. One of the quotes that I brought down was a saying from the Baal Shem Tov, where the Baal Shem Tov says that a person's soul can come into this world for 70 or 80 years just to do one good deed to help another. And there's a beautiful story from the Rebbe that the Rebbe came out of his house, and there was an individual, a man there, and he was very troubled, and he had a hard time, and he wanted to get some personal advice from the Rebbe, and he knew he wouldn't be able to get it at 770 because there were no such things anymore as personal audiences with the Rebbe. So he stopped the Rebbe, and he asked the Rebbe his question, and the Rebbe answered his question, and then the Rebbe went on his way back to the office, and a couple of yeshiva boys came to him afterwards and said, who are you to disrupt the Rebbe's schedule like this, and to all of a sudden, take up so much of the Rebbe's time? And he felt very bad that perhaps he had done something wrong. So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, went to the Rebbe's office, he left a letter, left his phone number. Later that night, he gets a call from one of the rabbis who take care of the office. And he says, the Rebbe wants you to know that there's a saying from the Baal Shem Tov, about 70 or 80 years, just to do one good deed for another person. The Rebbe said about himself, how do I know that this wasn't the good deed that I needed to do while my soul came into this world?
Wow.
So for the Lubavitcher Rebbe to say that, I was like, really taken aback by that statement. And it's a beautiful, beautiful response that the Rebbe gave to this individual. But I think the lesson for each and every single one of us is that every moment we have that opportunity. When you have a good deed that comes to your attention, that comes to your table, that comes to your attention, do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Because don't wait and don't push it off and don't make excuses and don't say, I have to catch a train, I have to catch a plane, I have to do this, I need, whatever it might be. If in the whole world, in God's whole creation, He created everything in such a way that that moment, this situation is going to be right in front of your face, then there must be a good reason why it's there.
Yeah. I mean, the question I have is when, for instance, how did you end up in Long Island by chance? Were you told to go there or you chose that spot?
It was divine providence. I was standing in front of 770, and a person who was in the midst of his move to Israel, who I didn't know, and he didn't know me, but for some reason, he looked at me, he said, do you want to take over my Chavara group, an adult education, Jewish adult education group in Long Island? I had just been married 1 week, and I said, sure, that sounds like a great thing. He gave me a piece of paper with a phone number on it and a person's name. Said, okay, that's one more thing off my list, and then he went on his way.
So that was a Hashgacha Pratis moment for you.
Wow, you can't get more than that.
Yeah, and
it changed the course of my life, and thank God many, many, many other people's lives in Long Island.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the Rebbe's focus was on these small moments and cultivating them and seeking them out, almost like doing good things because those would it's almost like planting a seed that you want to plant as many seeds as possible, and perhaps those moments are our purpose. Does that resonate
definitely.
At all?
I think the Rebbe definitely wanted to focus on the individual. The Rebbe was not one who focused on we have to do community building. Communities will come, but only when you start with the person, with the people, with one-to-one contacts, and you touch lives on a very personal level, and eventually that will snowball. And the Rebbe was definitely a snowballer. He was somebody who caused tremendous increase in good deeds over the course of the 80 plus years since or 70 plus years since the Rebbe became the Rebbe, and even before that, indeed.
Yeah. So how does Torah and mitzvahs connect to the idea of purpose in your book and just generally speaking?
So my first chapter is all about Torah and mitzvahs and how that really is our God-given mandate as a Jewish people. And that's a mandate that we can't forget, and that's central and foundational to our being and to our mission statement as a human being. Because God has a plan for this world, and Mashiach is the end product of that plan. And Mashiach, the belief in Mashiach is basically a belief that God has a purpose for this universe. And the purpose is to reunite with God in a total reunion, that God will feel totally comfortable showing his essence in this world. But there's going to be steps by step by step by step. And every time that we learn Torah, every time we do mitzvahs, we're contributing, we're fusing the physical and the spiritual. We're bringing together the infinite and the finite in a way that this is all part of the process of leading up to the ultimate purpose, which is when Mashiach comes.
Was there a point other than that specific moment that a friend of mine, they are in the rug business, and they were saying for the first few years, they weren't sure if they should go down that path. Maybe they were doubting that was their life's, I don't know if they were going to say purpose, but that if that was their life's direction. And eventually they created a very successful rug business, and they were happy that they did that after many years. Mm-hmm. So is it possible to know what your purpose is in advance, or is it only in hindsight? Do you have to trust that you're living your purpose? How does trust play into this concept?
So if you're going to a field because you have a talent or quality or something that's very internal, then I think you can know from a very young age sometimes that this is the direction I want to follow and what I want to pursue as I grow older. If you're talking about going into business, a lot of it depends on what kind of business. You're going to become a financier, you're going to go into wholesale, go into retail, manufacturing, commercial, you're going to be in the press. So all these things very often, according to the Rebbe's teachings, are very dependent, just as in my case, on circumstances in your life and things. God leads you a certain direction. He pushes you and presents you with certain things that are the opportunities that he wants you to pursue. And, when they came across the rug business, whatever opportunity that was, it wasn't as if somebody had presented them with a dish opportunity or an opportunity to go into the, into finance or whatever it is.
So they trusted and then they acted upon it.
Right.
Like now, you had to have a tremendous amount of trust in 1977 to go to Long Island, or maybe not. I mean, I guess it's fascinating to me to hear that your purpose in life, is that often synonymous with, a lot of people view it as synonymous with their vocation, with what they do. Are those always the same, or are they different? Can somebody have more than one purpose?
Yeah, so we can have multi-purposes, definitely. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like you're a business that you have one mission statement that defines the mission of your company and all of your employees. I think as a human being, we should also have a mission statement, but it doesn't have to be one-dimensional. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, we're a husband, we're a wife, we're a father, a mother, a child, we're cousins, we have family, we have many, many different responsibilities, many hats that we wear. And those are all part and parcel of our purpose, which is beautiful. I mean, sometimes the more responsibilities we have, the more we're able to accomplish in our purpose. As the Rebbe told many people many times, that you should just add on in your responsibilities. Don't decrease, add on, because you have the God-given ability to do a lot in your life, and you shouldn't be satisfied. One of the quotes is about, if a person satisfies himself by being a baker of bread, and indeed they are in a position where they could go out and dive and pick up pearls, they might be taking the easy way out. So we should always be able to know that there's more to accomplish, more to do. And the Rebbe has a beautiful piece of advice, which I put into one of my notes there, about how do I know what level of Judaism I should keep?
Yeah.
If this is my purpose and I want to do it, but I'm not ready to jump in the way you guys do with the black hats and the sheitlach. So tell me what I can do. So the Rebbe answers that question. Says, do everything in Judaism that you feel comfortable with, Do one thing that you're uncomfortable with. And then when that thing that you're uncomfortable with, you all of a sudden feel that, oh, I'm comfortable with that, then you know the time has come to add on one more thing that you're uncomfortable with. Mm-hmm. So the Rebbe wants that in fulfilling our purpose, we should always be aware of pushing ourselves. We should never be satisfied. We should never just sit back and think, okay, I got it. The Rebbe, there are a couple of quotes in the book from the Rebbe also about how spiritual matters and physical matters. You should always look up to somebody who's spiritually greater than you, but not necessarily look up to them because they're materially greater than you. You have to establish your priorities and your moral goals in life.
Is meaning and purpose and mission, are they the same or are they connected? How would you?
So meaning and purpose, I think, are definitely different. And I'll tell you, and I've written about this also in this book. I can spend a day going to museums in Manhattan. I can spend a lot of time helping old ladies across the street. I could do a lot of meaningful things with my life. But if I have a family member who's sick, who needs me, or I have a situation which really is calling my name, and it's not as fun, and it's not as fulfilling, and it's not really enjoyable, but it's purposeful because I know it's got my name on it, and this is where I need to be. And I can always say, but I'm doing something very meaningful. So in that sense, I think meaning and purpose are different. Meaning might give me that sense of doing something meaningful, feeling good about myself, being educated or whatever the endeavor might be. Purposeful does not mean it's always going to be fun, but it has your name on it. You might have to sit and take care of a sick spouse or a child. Mm-hmm. We were taking care of our child. Was it fun? Was it meaningful? No, but it was definitely purposeful. Right. So there's a difference between the two.
I want to ask a few sort of rapid fire questions now.
Okay.
So what's the most, I guess, unconventional purpose exercise in the book?
Most unconventional or
interesting?
Or interesting. I would say, can I say difficult?
Yeah,
Would that qualify?
Yeah.
I think difficult is accepting that what happened to me in my life up till today was purposeful and was part of divine providence. Mm-hmm. That can be a very painful, very difficult path to go in because of a person experienced real trauma in their life, or their parents got divorced, or they were abused, or they had addictions, or I don't have to list all the problems that people have during the course of their life. Mm-hmm. Being able to accept that there was a reason why my soul had to go through that experience. Mm-hmm. And what am I going to do with it now? Very hard. Yes. Very, very difficult. And I hesitated to even include it, but I thought that without that, I would be cheating people out of a tool that they could use to really help them overcome the trauma in their life. Because when you can deal with these negative events in your life and accept that there was a purpose for it, it changes the whole environment. There's a story, again, I included in the book as well, about a woman went into the Rebbe and told the Rebbe her long list of problems and tzarus and difficulties. And the Rebbe listened, and then the Rebbe looked at her and said, "You don't have problems." She looked at him shocked. Said, "You do have challenges." And that kind of readjusts the whole outlook on everything that she was describing. Yeah. If we could only do that in the present, as far as looking back on our past and seeing the things that we experienced, that they were challenges then, and they still might be challenges, but they're challenges. They're not problems, because when you have problems, it's very easy to fall into victim mode. And Hasidic philosophy does not allow for somebody to fall into victim mode. We're never a victim. Get that word out of your mind. Yeah. Things happen because there's a purpose why they happen. Now live with it, grow with it, go forward. You have a future ahead of you. What are you going to do with it? And that's a tall order.
Yeah. I mean, I heard the difference between an optimist and a pessimist is that a pessimist sees challenge in every opportunity, and an optimist sees opportunity in every challenge.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I'll just ask one or two more. What misconception about purpose does this book correct?
I think it corrects the idea, number one, that divine providence is only on rare occasions do we see divine providence. Mm-hmm. That is, the Rebbe is totally against that whole perspective that divine providence is just when coincidences happen or when something happens, that's divine providence. Divine providence, the Rebbe says very clearly, is a day in, day out, 24/7 experience. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very important lesson that the Rebbe teaches here.
Mm. What is the most moving feedback you've received from the book?
Most moving feedback in the last 4 weeks since it came out, let's see. I think that one individual that I gave the book to called me up and just, I knew they were going through a difficult situation, calling me up and thanked me very much and said that the Rebbe's words really helped them to put it into perspective. Mm-hmm. And they feel that once they are able to put it into perspective and it's not so overwhelming to them, then they felt that it created a little bit light at the end of the tunnel to be able to start the recovery process.
Yeah, and if you had one word of advice or one challenge to people at home listening to this to help them get closer to their purpose, what would that be?
I would say learn the Rebbe's teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Rebbe's teachings are so positive and so infused with godliness, and you get to know God really and what God wants and why God created this world and what He wants from us as human beings. And the Rebbe makes it so blindingly clear that each of us has a purpose, and each of the events in life have a purpose, and life is just an incredible gift. And as the previous Rebbe said, we live in a garden. It might have wars, and might have difficulties, might have evil, might have all types of things going on. But the Rebbe was the, as you say, the eternal optimist who saw the good in everything. And the Rebbe was really teaching us how to think for ourselves as well, in terms of how does a person adapt that type of a thinking process.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that sticks out most to me, it's a few different points that almost seem contradictory, but really when you look at them, they're not. One is that you bring purpose to moments, that rather than looking for a moment to give you a sense of purpose, by taking action, you're infusing that moment with your purpose.
Very good point.
But then at the same time, there's a grand plan that you're sort of following of Hashgacha Pratis, that God is sort of orchestrating events so that you can be brought to a better place or brought to a higher place. And so perhaps on the surface, those two things seem opposites, but I think there's an old Hasidic story that somebody goes to an old Rabbi saying, what can we learn from atheists? And he says, well, we can learn that we need to take action and don't rely on a miracle to make something happen. Take the action now. So it's an interesting sort of, both can be true at the same time, that maybe in this moment I don't feel purposeful, but if I take the action, then that will give me a sense of purpose, a sense of forward momentum, and at the same time trusting that maybe that taking that action is the trust that I am putting into Hashem, to knowing that this is part of that plan.
I think it's very well put. And I think that when people really commit to a life of purpose, they're going to be living with a paradox. It just comes with the territory. Because there can be mixed messages, there can be seemingly contradictory purposes that are being proposed to a person, and simultaneously there's a constant challenge. Right. And I think part of the experience is figuring out how to balance it on a personal level. so that you can stay focused and accomplish what you feel needs to be accomplished, and nevertheless be able to absorb all the other stimuli or messages or ideas that are, of course, all around us in our society.
Yeah, so now's your chance to share any last thoughts you have with people listening to this, or share how they can get the book, or what are the next steps for people who really want to live a purpose-filled life.
Okay, I would say that as much as you are feeling a purpose, or in some cases, probably many people listening to this or viewing this might not feel a purpose or might not be able to define their purpose, I think that it's a very lofty and important goal to work towards. Mm-hmm. And it's something that the more we are in touch with that purpose, the more inner peace we'll have, the more stamina we'll have, the more fulfillment we'll have, the more we'll be able to accomplish, the more we'll be able to wake up in the morning and say, wow, I have a brand new day ahead of me, so much to do and so many people to meet and so many experiences that God's going to be bringing to my doorsteps. And then as a result, it really adds a beautiful dimension to life. I would, of course, recommend the books. They're both available on Amazon. The newest book, of course.
Yeah, why don't you hold your books up again?
Okay, this is Your Unique Purpose, which is available both on Amazon. I believe less expensive at Kahot, which is the Lubavitch Publication Society. It's KEHOT.com. And it's very easy reading. As you said, it's written as a notebook. It's not a long out. You can see from the interior, it's the script or the text is
it's very
not filling the pages.
The book is very, very nice.
Thank you. And this book was published back in 2020. It's available just on Amazon, hardcover or softcover. And it also goes into a much more analytical, kind of historical. I've quoted a lot of people from all different backgrounds throughout the ages about what they said about purpose, and of course go into many different ideas in terms of how to approach the subject of purpose and what are 8 paths of purpose, which, as we mentioned before, bringing purpose down off the mountain, so to say, that you don't have to accomplish some incredible purpose in your life, but making each of those 8 paths give you something very practical to do in order to be able to feel that you're fulfilling a purpose.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi Teldon, for joining us. I mean, your insights really remind us that finding purpose isn't about waiting for something to happen to you. It's about just taking the next right step, but having faith and having trust, emunah, in the grand scheme of things. So thank you so much. And yeah, get the book, share it with your friends, and it makes a great gift. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure speaking with you.